Charlie just stole $2 million.
You look like the cat that swallowed the canary.
But between the partner he can't trust...
Don't go squirrely on me now. Stick to the plan.
Don't poke. The woman he can't resist.
Does this mean you're rich, Charlie?
The friend he can't avoid.
Ho, ho, ho!
And the mobster he's trying to escape.
Anybody but a lawyer would consider the consequences.
Getting out of town will be slippery.
Going somewhere, Mr. Argos?
The Ice Harvest. Rated R.
Hello and welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramoni, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Ryan Lancello.
Howdy, folks.
Where we're talking about 2005's The Ice Harvest, a film directed by Harold Ramis that stars John Cusack and Billy Bob Thornton and Connie Nielsen. It's the second to last film of his. He follows this up with Year One in 2009. So we wanted to do this because I wanted to talk about Harold Ramis, and this seemed like a movie that not many people are talking about anymore.
I never hear about it.
Yeah, which is weird.
I didn't hear about it when it came out.
Yeah, it seemed to fly under the radar. It doesn't do that well financially, and it just kind of never really even picks up after that. It just kind of fizzles.
Yeah, what was this, 2005?
2005.
You're starting to see the death of, maybe not, you're starting to see it. You're reading the post-mortem on the mid-budget film, I'd say around 2005. And, you know, I lament the loss of the mid-budget film because they're movies like this. One, they're generally movies for adults. It's not a movie for children. That doesn't mean it's like a porno. It just means this is a movie that is meant for adults to enjoy, and it didn't cost $150 million, and it doesn't have a fucking CGI animal. So, you know, I don't know. It's one of the last of those. I really liked it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I did as well. And I think when you're talking about Christmas movies, they're so oversaturated in terms of what's shown every year, what's airs every year. And you have these, little kind of, especially the crime. I love a Christmas crime movie.
I love it.
I love Bad Santa.
This movie checks off so many boxes for me. Ice Harvest.
Yeah.
It's cynical Christmas. It's fucking in a miserable setting, Wichita Falls. It looks awful.
It does.
The whole film. And it's shot outside of Chicago, but, they did it justice. I'm sure it's a hellscape outside of there, too. Just great look.
Yeah.
It's film noir. You know what I mean? Like, in a sense. Oh, and you know what else it does? It does that one night. I love one night movies. And not only that, it's I got to get out of town. So it's all takes place in one night. Got to get out of town. Fucking miserable weather.
And spoiler alert,
Christmas.
they get away with it. That's a big, you always say you like, with Quick Change, we talked about that.
Very rare.
Yeah.
That the person that should get away with it gets away with it.
Yeah,
Not only that, you get an added bonus at the end of this, but we'll get into that.
Well, and I think it actually feels a lot like Quick Change. They're, like you said, getting out of town, them trying, a lot of happening in real time, basically.
I'm a total sucker for that. And I don't know if there's a genre necessarily beyond one crazy night, get out of town, but I love that shit, dude.
Well, I heard an interview with Harold Ramis where he talked about one of the big things he wanted to do for this movie was, instead of White Christmas, he called it Wet Christmas.
And I love that. It's fucking raining the whole time.
There's no snow, really. It's just raining.
Yeah.
And it sets the tone for this miserable movie. And it's when you look at his career, which we're going to go through his career, his directorial slate film by film, but this really stands out a little bit because... maybe not. I mean, he was doing some of those, the Analyze This and That, dealt with crime. But I think where his career was at the time, this was a really bold move for him. And I think it worked.
I agree. Not only that, I'm looking at his filmography here. I think there's one or two I haven't seen. It's his best-looking film. It's his most cinematic.
For sure.
It really embraces the... visual trappings of that film noir genre and kind of updates it to that Wichita setting during Christmas.
Sure.
Like, you know what it is? It's got that wet neon. You know what I mean? There's a ton of fucking wet neon in this, and it's like looking at a fireplace.
Well,
I could just do it for hours.
The cinematographer on this is Alar Kivilo.
Anything else?
A Simple Plan. I think that was the...
real quick aside, me and you are movie guys, right?
Yeah.
So everyone always wants to fucking go, hey, did you see this? And I have not seen everything. So when a movie comes up and people goes, you haven't seen that? Like, oh, why the fuck have you not seen that? Blah, blah. I could kick myself for still have not watching A Simple Plan. Because I love Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Paxton over Pullman. Mm-hmm. Love that Bill. He's great. And just, I don't know why I haven't
never heard it phrased that way before, but I like that.
Always. I love Bill Pullman, but Paxton over Pullman.
Well, I haven't seen it in a long time, but it seems common threads with this movie where it's like three guys trying to get away with they find money or something, and
It's DP. He likes to shoot in the cold, man.
yeah, I mean, but I feel I don't know this for a fact, but looking at his filmography, I feel like Ramis saw a simple plan and was like, I want this guy, because they didn't work together prior to that, and he did year one following this, which we're going to talk a little bit about on Sidetracks on our Patreon, patreon.com/almostcultclassics. We're going to talk a little bit about the post Ice Harvest Harold Ramis, and then we're going to jump back to one of his earlier films, Club Paradise, which I had never seen, you had never seen, and we watched it in prep for this. And
it's got the big SCTV connection, which you are way more versed in that than me. So it's something to talk about there. But yeah, it's almost like the only SCT movie you kind of get.
Yeah, I mean, there's Strange Brew and things like that. But as far as an ensemble goes,
what's the polka one?
The Last Polka, which is an HBO movie, but it's similar. I thought Club Paradise was a good ensemble. There's some weird. We'll talk about it, but there's some things that are odd about that movie. But yeah, Harold Ramis directs this. It's based off a novel by Scott Phillips,
American crime writer.
Yeah, it seems he had done some screenwriting work. This was his first novel. The novel itself is set in 1979.
I don't know if it was his first novel.
It was.
It was his first novel.
Ice Harvest, yeah.
We got to get in arguments more on this show. Whatever, I'll take your word for it.
He had done uncredited work on a lot of screenplays. The only thing he's credited for, especially on IMDb, is a 1996 movie called Crosscut, which it's it doesn't seem like anyone saw that movie. And then he starts getting into writing novels. I think there's a few in the series now. He wrote a sequel, prequel to Ice Harvest.
I'm tempted to read that.
Yeah,
because based on the ending of Ice Harvest.
There's some, and I don't know. The DVD has a couple alternate endings, which we'll talk about too, but they're not what ends up happening.
I wonder if that book goes into because Randy Quaid plays Bill Gerard.
Yeah,
and he's like the heavy. He's like the top guy in the whatever crime syndicate is going on in Kansas. But I wonder if it gets into that. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean,
like a good crime book.
I'll tell you what. I originally, and I revised what I was saying on it. I thought this movie felt like Harold Ramis doing a Coen Brothers movie, but it feels like Harold Ramis doing a Barry Sonnenfeld movie. It feels more
interesting.
Don't you think it feels more similar to that?
I know what you're saying. It's almost a mix of both, and that's maybe the sensibility of Harold Ramis.
Yeah. Well, so I have the Ebert review, and I pulled it because I thought of this, and then I looked up the review and said, oh, he nailed what I was thinking. The Ice Harvest follows the humor of an Elmore Leonard project and the interlocking violence of a Blood Simple. The movie, directed by Harold Ramis, finds a balance between the goofy and the gruesome. I like the movie for the quirky way it pursues humor through the drifts of greed, lust, booze, betrayal, and spectacularly complicated ways to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. I mean, I
agree.
It feels like one of those Elmore Leonard type.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like a ripoff either.
No, not at all.
Like post Pulp Fiction, everyone wants to take their crack at the Tarantino movie,
right.
And there was a million, shitty knockoffs, and this is just in that vein.
Sure,
it's its own thing, and I think it helps that it was written by a guy who writes crime fiction.
Yeah.
You didn't have to just ape Elmore Leonard. Yeah, it's Scott Phillips. You had the fucking book. And not only that, do you notice who wrote this movie?
I did.
There's quite a pedigree there.
Yeah, it's written by, I don't know if they're a writing duo or they just happened. They wrote one other movie together, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know the circumstance. I never understood that. Me and Joe, we write a little bit together. Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing, right?
Well, so
it's hard to say, okay, it's almost like people ask, well, what comes first, the music or the lyrics?
Well, as far as I know, and I've talked about before, Thomas Lennon and Ben Garant's book on screenwriting really breaks into the different, screen story and what all that means. But the and symbol means written together. And the word and means two people wrote it individually of one another. And I believe this was and.
That makes sense.
But looking at their filmography, they also wrote, I think it was called Twilight, and it wasn't the Twilight that everyone thinks of.
It was Paul Newman, Gene Hackman, Susan Sarandon. I remember, quick aside, there's going to be so many of this. And I think a lot of you, if you're in our age group, or older, you'll kind of get this is Video Store. And I've said this about Bonfire of the Vanities, the film.
Yeah.
I used to see that Twilight tape in, the Video Store, and I'm like, that's a movie for adults. Because it's fucking, Paul Newman, it's Gene Hackman, Susan Sarandon, and they're doing something mysterious.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's what adults do. And it always looked cool. Like, and I never saw it.
I misspoke, by the way. So Twilight is written by Robert Benton on his own, and the movie Nobody's Fool is written by the two of them together, another Paul Newman movie.
Robert Benton also wrote and directed and won an Oscar for Kramer versus Kramer. Guy wrote Bonnie and Clyde, for Christ's sake. Late Show?
The Late Show is a movie I love, and it feels very similar to Ice Harvest. It's got that noir.
Yeah, Benton's good.
Yeah.
And he co-wrote Superman with Puzo.
That's right, yeah.
A little shout out to, or a call back to our last episode.
So, yeah, I mean, these guys...
Oh, and Richard Russo won a Pulitzer for his book Empire Falls.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's
which
also...
he adapted into the HBO miniseries Empire Falls.
So these guys
I
are
heard
perfect.
Is very good.
Yeah, you have one guy that writes crime novels, another that writes crime movies, that come together and write the screenplay that's,
You ever see Bonnie and Clyde?
I have.
It's good.
Yeah, it's of that era. It's so perfect of, I think that really started that late 60s, early 70s wave of true crime and crime movies.
Well, I think we could jump back to our Dick Tracy episode. You can't. Warren Beatty, man. He's good.
Yeah, and he had, the pull to get those movies made like few had before him.
And
so.
that's, I always appreciate him for that aspect, is getting shit done. I can also blame him for a lot of things I hate today, but that's a whole nother story. But some serious writers on board on this.
Serious talent involved in this movie, not the least of which is Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis was born in 1944 in Chicago, Illinois. Obviously, Chicago plays a big part of his movies and of his perspective. This movie, like you said, is filmed in Chicago, though it's Wichita it's supposed to be.
It's the outskirts of Chicago. And I've never been to Chicago?
I have not. I would love to someday.
Me and you should take a little road trip.
Yeah,
we have any fans in Chicago, let us know. I want to do a live show.
Any fans that own a hotel, please get in touch in Chicago. But growing up, he found a lot of inspiration in the screwball comedies. When he talked about a lot how when he was growing up, Jackie Gleason and Sid Caesar and all of these guys were really big. But he actually, as a kid, loved when they would start showing the old movies. So the Marx Brothers were huge on him, and they kind of really introduced that idea of anarchy and like the triumph of the everyman. And that really sits with him for a while, and he kind of always carries that with him. He studies at Washington University in St. Louis, which becomes a big part of Animal House when he writes that screenplay.
He didn't write that alone.
No, he wrote that with Doug Kenny and Chris Miller. So, Lampoon guys all got together. But as far as,
Does Chris Miller come back for Club Paradise? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I
Somebody,
could be wrong.
He wrote that with someone, a couple
There's
other guys.
like 7 screenwriters on
Oh,
Club
right,
Paradise.
and that's what I wanted to... There's a Caddyshack similarity with Club Paradise, and we'll get into that on the Patreon.
Well, there's a common thread with a lot of these early...
Yeah, but I'll put it to you this way, because I don't want to get into it too much. You guys, I got to tease you a little bit for the Patreon. What the miracle of Caddyshack was not replicated on Club Paradise.
I mean, and it wasn't replicated in a lot of stuff.
No, but Caddyshack,
of course,
is miraculous that it even is coherent.
Well, and I'm going to talk about a little bit. I think he tried to do the same thing with Multiplicity when he did with Groundhog Day. Like, he really tried to get into, like, philosophical comedy type things.
The guy, I got to give Ramis credit. He has struck lightning more than once. Caddyshack. Fucking Groundhog Day. The problem is he tried to strike lightning twice, and it rarely happens.
So he studies at Washington University. He avoids the Vietnam draft by telling them he just took every drug imaginable. When they asked him what drugs, he just, marijuana, LSD, cocaine. Like, he ends up back in Chicago in 1968, where he starts writing freelance for the Chicago Daily News, and then he starts taking classes at Second City. So this is how he starts to pursue comedy somewhat professionally. In 1972, he starts doing jokes for Playboy magazine, again freelance, and then in 1974. Second City star John Belushi takes Harold Ramis, takes Bill Murray over to New York for the National Lampoon Radio Hour. So Belushi was instrumental in pulling a lot of talent away from Chicago by saying, you ought to be in Rome. He compared New York to Rome. Like, if you want to be doing this, you have to come and be in New York. And he was right because, Saturday Night Live was on the cusp there, and Lampoon was starting to do the radio show and stuff like that. So
let me ask you something, actually, because I know very little about Second City. It was never on anything. I think PBS was putting fucking Second City. I never saw it growing up. And you got to understand something, too. I'm pre-internet. Yeah. So I didn't have the chance. Like, I'm going to Google 5 neat guys.
So what you're talking about SCTV. Obviously, I'm talking about Second City, the theater troupe. But SCTV...
they didn't do that in Chicago. They didn't film the show.
No, the show is filmed in Canada, but it combined Chicago talent, Toronto talent.
I just wasn't sure if they tried to be like, hey, let's film it here.
No, I mean, Andrew Alexander, who was like one of the big guys, who was a producer on SCTV, he was in Chicago. So there's a lot of overlap, and I think they just did it in Chicago because it was cheaper. I mean, they did it in Canada because it was cheaper, and, you know, they had this whole soundstage that no one else was using. They could syndicate it very, you know, affordably.
I just wasn't sure.
The first time I remember seeing it was TV Land in maybe like 2002, would show it at like midnight.
So late. Like,
yeah.
Well, 2002.
Yeah.
Like,
and it only
you
because...
were 29 then.
And my dad would tape it and
mentally.
Be like, you like John Candy, you like Rick Moranis, you know they were in a show together, and it was like, holy shit, this is a thing.
It's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like when you look back, especially you watch those skits, and like not only are they, I won't say they are young, obviously, they're a little bit timeless looking. Obviously, John Candy is dead.
Yeah.
But like Rick Moranis is one of those guys like Richard Jenkins.
Yeah.
I saw you bring him up recently.
Ageless.
They've looked like that forever. Like, and it's weird to think because they all went and became independently, successful. They all did this goofy sketch show together. You watch it, like I said, I just brought it up, Five Neat Guys. When you watch, it's like five powerhouses.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Well, and it's weird too when you break down, like, I know, and SNL's had, you know, hundreds of cast members, and I feel like SCTV, pretty much all of them, for the most part, became someone. They had a successful career.
You would know better than me, but I can rattle off 10 members off the top of my head, and I feel like, how many members were there? You know, from that original crew.
But yeah, so when the Second City Theater Troupe was going on, that's when some of these members start to go to New York. Belushi, one of the first ones to do so, and starts bringing over Bill Murray, bringing over Aykroyd, bringing over Harold Ramis. And Harold Ramis, eventually, through his writing with Second City, his work on Lampoon, he becomes the head writer for SCTV, which launches in 1976. And all throughout his tenure there, he refused multiple offers to leave to go work for SNL. And there were quite a few members that John Candy was one of them, that they refused better opportunity to work in SNL because they liked this little niche group of people they were working with.
And obviously in the present day, you'd say good for you.
Of course.
But back then, SNL meant something. It was hot. It was beyond hot.
Yeah, I mean, they all eventually leave for film careers, but I feel like the fact that they didn't leave to do another sketch comedy type thing was telling. The only reason he leaves SCTV is when the chance comes up to write Animal House with Doug Kenny and Chris Miller. Obviously, it redefines the genre when that movie comes out. It's a huge hit. It becomes the highest-grossing comedy of the time, 141 on $3 million budget, so changes their lives.
It's a total cultural moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And John Landis in the director's chair. A lot of, you start to see how this group of people really start building a brand. And he obviously follows up that with Caddyshack, which becomes his directorial debut.
Top 10 for me.
Yeah, it's
top 10.
It's amazing.
I know I always shit on the idea of top 10s. If I had two Caddyshack's in there, it is. I enjoy it every time. I have to say this real quick. It's my favorite line from the movie, and obviously it's Dangerfield as Al Survik.
Yeah,
but it always gets overshadowed because my favorite line is when he's walking into the pro shop with, I think it's Wang.
Yeah.
It's the Japanese businessman he's with. But it always gets overshadowed because of the hat line with Judge Smails.
Yeah.
Like, does that hat come with a free cup of soup or whatever? Yeah. But when they're walking in, he goes, hey, Wang. I want to do Dangerfield here, but I won't torture. I won't torture the listeners. He's like, hey, Wang, don't let them know you're Jewish. This club's restricted. It's the funniest line ever.
I love his facial expression too when he says, "Don't worry, it looks good on you." Yeah, he does that look.
We're both doing it for our
I mean, so Caddyshack is written by Kenny again with Ramis and Brian Doyle Murray, who worked at a golf course. So, we think of it as this huge cultural phenomenon. It's not an immediate hit. It's it doesn't really become as big as Animal House, and it kind of depresses Doug Kenny. At which point, it kind of leads to his demise. He's so upset by they don't. It's Chevy Chase had a great line with, it actually might have been Harold Ramis, that said Doug Kenny fell while he was looking for a place to jump. Like he falls off a cliff in Hawaii, I believe, and they never really know for sure if it was suicide or.
It's funny. Caddyshack is bigger than Animal House
for sure.
Like Animal House is funny. Don't get me wrong. And honestly, I watched not super recently, but I remember years ago I bought it. So I was in my DVD collecting phase. And I was just like, it kind of drags. It's this or that. Then I watched it again, like years after that. I'm like, it's really fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's a very ramshackle film. I think it doesn't always work. Same goes for Caddyshack, but Caddyshack is superior, in my opinion.
It's Animal House.
To Animal House. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
yeah.
I
and not
think-
only that, I think it's culturally bigger. Like, it's
I do
stuck
too.
around longer. I think because I don't want to say it's golf versus college, but like everyone, like obviously the scam of college, it's not. There's no fucking Animal House anymore.
I think Caddyshack does
the frat is dead.
the slobs versus snobs idea a lot better. I think it kind of takes that, like you said, it's not much about college. It's more just about kids who are working at a country club, which I think a lot of us have been in that place. Either we work that type of job,
We've
or
all dealt with that class thing too, where it's okay. You got to do this dance. It's just Caddyshack has no right. If you ever look into the history, and we're going to get on this in our Patreon, which I really highly suggest everyone sign up for, but it has no right. The movie shouldn't exist. There was the drugs and the shitty writing and the fucking coked up Dangerfield, everything.
Yeah.
It should not have worked. Chevy Chase and Bill Murray wanting to murder each other. The movie shouldn't exist, and it's fucking amazingly hilarious.
Well, I think, too, before we get into the movies that he directs, there's a lot that he does similar, and especially Meatballs. He writes Meatballs. I did check that out. I've never seen it before. Like you said, it's just one of those things where they're like, let's do it again. And, I think it's one of the first, if not the first, like, summer camp movie like that, with the counselors are, getting stoned and having sex. I think that was like... So today when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is tired and it doesn't feel fresh. But at the time, I could see how it was a bigger deal.
Well, once again, too, it's like that thing. It's like, does the frat exist? Like this Delta? Like, sure, frats exist, but like Delta House?
Yeah.
Like, do kids go to camp anymore?
Right.
Like, I guess they do. Do the counselors get high? I assume.
It was, we see a lot of those movies, like Heavyweights, things like that, where it's like you go away for months and weeks and you're all in a cabin together and you're having wacky adventures. I just don't know if it did exist ever.
It did.
And
it
it
did.
definitely doesn't now.
No.
I think that's what I mean.
You know what it is? The fun's gone now.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I think the counselors are still doing drugs. You know what I mean? Like at a camp, blah blah. But no one's having fun anymore.
Yeah.
But that's philosophical to our era. Let's talk film.
So also we have to touch on a couple things that he does that are not, directing roles. He starts writing for Dangerfield. He does Back to School. He writes the story on Rover Dangerfield. He writes Armed and Dangerous, which he later claims was not his screenplay, but ended up making it on screen. And then he also ends up starring in Stripes, which is a really different move for him at that point in his career.
How the hell did he get that role?
So Stripes starts as Ivan Reitman wanting to do Cheech and Chong in the military. And then Cheech and Chong want complete creative control over the whole concept. And they're like, all right, let's rewrite it for Bill Murray. And Bill Murray champions Harold Ramis, says, I don't want to do this unless I have Harold Ramis with me.
Had he acted before?
He had done he appeared on SCTV a bit, and he had little parts here and there. But if you looked at this today, where they were like, let's take this writer that hasn't really appeared much in movies and co-star a film.
I don't care how you look. You can't help how you were born. This guy would never get 20 feet near a fucking lens.
Especially then he has those huge glasses on.
And the hair.
But they're such a
Quite
great
frankly,
pairing.
the two of them look awful,
Yeah.
but I love Stripes.
Your theory on Bill Murray, which is always he's bald but his hair's real long, so it's like what I can't make it out. And in Stripes he has that. But yeah, I mean that's 81. That's from there I think he's able to become Egon in Ghostbusters. He's able to do that type
the
of
guy
thing.
can act.
And then
I love Stripes and Ghostbusters. He's great.
He's great, and that's really he does a couple other things here and there, but as far as leading roles, that's really it. And then I feel like you can tell how many people he inspired because he appears in so many of those movies as like the father or the cop. Like in Orange County, I think he's the dean. Like a lot of those little parts he has.
I remember him in probably Apatow's last watchable film, Knocked Up.
Yeah, and he's perfect in that.
He's very good in that.
He has that great line where he's just like, having you is the best thing that ever happened to me. And Seth Rogen's like, well, now I just feel bad for you.
But it's fun. I think, Fat Harold Ramis, it's something about that. You just want to give him a hug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by all accounts, he was a good dude.
He seemed to be a great guy. I do want to touch on one more thing before we get into his career. In 1982, he almost directs an adaptation of one of our favorite books, Confederacy of Dunces, which he...
Everyone's tried to... I feel like so many comedy guys have tried to take a crack at that.
Everyone. But he wants to do it with Belushi in the lead as Ignatius and Richard Pryor as Burma Jones. And it falls apart with Belushi's death, obviously.
Wait, was who? Richard Pryor is who?
Burma, isn't that his name?
Was that the one that was sweeping?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, Owie.
Fuck, it's so funny,
I'm
man.
actually rereading that now. And,
one of the only books that's made me laugh out loud.
There's a line where, if any of our listeners haven't read The Confederacy of Dunces, I recommend you check it out. It's just, like Ryan said, it's one of those books you read and laugh out loud. But there's a line where Mrs. Riley is talking about how her and her husband went to go see Red Dust. And then afterwards, the line was something like, Mr. Riley used an indirect approach, and that's how Ignatius was conceived, and he never went to the movie theaters again. It's such a ridiculous concept. But yeah, he comes pretty close to making a Confederacy of Dunces movie with Belushi, who, as far as I'm concerned, might have been one of the only guys that could have pulled that role off.
Not as fat as he should be, but who cares?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I imagine you would pad.
Of course. They probably would have. And
I saw Offerman do it on stage, and they padded him, and it was fine.
I saw that. I went to see it.
Sorry, you saw that?
I went. I traveled to Boston to see that.
Nick Offerman, he's another one.
After Caddyshack follows up with National Lampoon's Vacation.
God, that's got to be you. I am not the fan you are of this film.
Yeah,
I like
relish this movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in forever, but...
Yeah, it's based on a National Lampoon short story by John Hughes. And one of my favorite aspects of Vacation is that in the original script, that it ends with them kidnapping Roy Wally. They go to his house and they kidnap him. And audiences wanted to see them get to the park. That's what they wanted to see them on the, they went to the park, but not really in it. So Ramis and John Hughes get together and script that new ending. And for me, it becomes the perfect representation of both of them, where you have that anarchy of, Harold Ramis, but then you have like that John Hughes perspective of just like a family frustration, and it comes together really well. And
it does.
I think John Hughes stands by the original ending, which to this day has never been seen, but they still bring Roy Wally in. Eddie Bracken comes in playing Roy Wally at the end, and John Candy gets that role.
Phenomenal John Candy.
And I think Frank McRae is the other guy. I could be wrong.
You're probably right, man. He's dead, right?
Yeah.
He died this year.
I think so, or either passed because we had done 1941 after, So
we're going to try to do some interviews in the next year. He would have been a good one.
But yeah, National Lampoon's Vacation, it's terrific. Obviously,
how good is it when he punches that fucking moose?
Hilarious.
I maybe cried laughing when I was a kid.
One of my favorite scenes is when he breaks down to the family when he's like, "I think you're all fucked in the head." Like it's such a great moment where he's like, we're almost there. Like,
man, Chevy, we're gonna do a little year wrap up after this. Maybe we'll talk about Memoirs of Invisible Man. But I've been thinking, I'm like, he was not the man for that role in that film.
Oh, I disagree completely.
Memoirs?
Oh, Memoirs. Yeah, I thought you meant for Clark Griswold. I was.
No, he's there's the big difference. Clark Griswold, totally relatable.
Yeah,
whatever character he played in Memoirs. I'm not rooting for this fucking guy.
I finally read the Fletch novel, and same thing. Like, he was perfect for Fletch.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you just are.
Yeah. And, also Randy Quaid, National Lampoon's Vacation. That's how, Harold Ramis and him start working together, and obviously they'll come back in The Ice Harvest.
Sure.
So then we have Club Paradise, which is 85, which we're going to talk way more in depth on, our Patreon show. Any just thoughts you want to give or tease about your thoughts on that movie?
It was like I said, like Caddyshack was such a fucking mess, and it still came together. Club Paradise is a total mess, in writing, especially in the writing.
The weird part for me was that Robin Williams is supposed to be your lead. Is not really in the movie that much. I think the other characters get way more screen time, and I don't have a problem with that.
I don't either, and I
just think it was weird casting.
Well, it wasn't the original cast.
Right. It was supposed to be Bill Murray.
And John Cleese.
Right.
In the Peter O'Toole role. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into all this.
Yeah.
I just think, like I said, lightning did not strike twice. I think they thought they could, we'll do what we did on Caddyshack. We'll film a ton of shit, funny stuff. We'll cut it together.
Right.
It'll work. It didn't. It's not terrible. I actually enjoyed it. It's all performances that you get by on. Quick shout out to Andrea Martin. She's such a goofball.
Yeah,
she's
so funny in that.
Goofball.
They're all the SCTV people really make that movie worth checking out.
And she's like Joe Flaherty is the pilot. Yeah, we'll get into it. But I just gotta. I like her. I don't know what it is. She's just such a goofball.
So
reminds me of my mom or something.
That's 1986.
Hi, mommy. Shout out.
She's listening. So he takes a break between 86 and 93. Ghostbusters 2 happens then, which he writes. I think he was working a lot at this point, so he could afford a few years off.
I've been thinking a lot about Ghostbusters 2 lately because I keep hearing that. Is it Jackie Wilson?
Yeah.
I hate that fucking song. I hate Your love taking me
Statue of Liberty.
higher. I hate that song. I just hate it. I don't know why I don't like it. I like to. I think the
like to as
story
well.
is awesome with the goo and Vigo.
I'm so sick of people who critique sequels for being too similar to the first movie because I think like
They're busting ghosts.
yeah, like what do you
What the
expect?
fuck did you want?
I've been outraged about the member berries critique. I put that on Twitter. Stop saying member berries. Like people who like use that South Park episode with the member berries, like
People are doing that?
they use it as like film criticism. Like, oh, that movie's just member berries. Like, stop.
No, they don't.
They do. I've seen
So
it.
I said this, like I don't read. I used to devour film criticism. There's no good sites.
I'm not
to read
talking about
anymore.
like published film criticism. I'm talking about like internet critics.
Oh,
Love
do
using
they?
that. Yeah. Yeah, it's gross. It's gross, and it's I have
terrible, hacky shit.
Ghostbusters Afterlife for me didn't really work, but not because of that.
Well, we're going to talk
We're
about.
going to talk about that later.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Joe's such a big Ghostbusters fan. He's gonna. Ooh,
I got some thoughts
I'm
on it.
very interested to hear your critique. I did not see it.
I did not dislike it for the reasons that people would think.
You know what's sad? I didn't even know it was out.
Yeah. It got delayed, and it kind of just whimpered out. But it's made them a shit ton of money, so good for them.
Yeah, whoopee.
I'm just glad that they finally got the, I mean, fuck Sony. They don't deserve any
Yeah,
money.
right.
So then he comes back in 1993 with Groundhog Day, which
We just went through Caddyshack and Vacation, two huge movies.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day,
yeah,
Groundhog Day is probably his
it's his best.
all around.
Oh, yeah,
most
it's-
famous, most beloved.
I'll never forget like catching this movie on like a movie channel. I must have been like 12, and it started at like 10 o'clock when I was supposed to be going to bed.
Same age, like around that age.
And I just like had to stay up all night watching it because it was you like I'm like I haven't seen this before.
Well, the movie's got the great thing going for it, and it's built in, obviously, to the story is what will happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get that in a story, you've got the audience by the fucking balls.
Yeah.
They'll never stop watching because you have to. I've watched shit,
Yeah,
but I want to know what happens next. And garbage. Like seasons, like shows where I'm like, I hate this fucking show.
I just love how this movie, like Bill Murray's character goes through stages. It's like he has the acceptance of it, the grief of it. Like he goes through all of those moments where then he's just like, I want to kill myself. Like he eventually gets there.
It's a clever screenplay.
And yeah, I mean, I think Harold Ramis originally said it was 10 years, but then as he got older, he said it was probably like 30 or 40 that Bill Murray is stuck.
Oh, it's a long
like
time.
It's at least a decade. But he, Harold Ramis, there's a lot that goes on in the production of this movie. It starts as a script that is apparently like not filmable. It's written by a guy named Scott Rudin, I believe. Danny Rubin, I'm sorry. Written by Danny Rubin, and apparently his script starts with Bill Murray already stuck in the loop, where you just see this guy go about his day, and you're like, how's this guy know everything that's going to happen? But Harold Ramis comes in and really wants to ground it with that comedy element. And not only that, Harold Ramis is instrumental that we are not to find out why he's stuck in the loop. And
I think that's probably the brilliant choice of the film.
yeah, well,
Who cares?
apparently, I don't know if it was shot, but to please the studio, they had to write in it was a jilted lover that placed a curse on him, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it is dumb, but it would have.
Undermined the whole.
It doesn't need an answer.
But I love how, and even Howard Ramis, I think he was like he found it, he was tickled by it that all these religious groups started to find symbolism in it. I mean, Hasidic Jews, Buddhist, which he became a Buddhist later in life. The Catholics, Baptists, he said like the psychoanalysis community came out and was championing it. Like everyone found meaning in it, and I think that's if you're a filmmaker. And that's what you come out of.
You've done it.
Yeah.
You've done it. And he did. It's an all timer.
Yeah.
It's 100% an all timer. It's a great film.
It's sadly,
Even with that void of charisma, Andy McDowell, it's a great film.
our friend Chris Elliott is really funny in it.
Absolutely.
Brian Doyle Murray, who plays, I believe, the mayor, is great. A quick shout out to another friend of the show, our friend Ben Kunkel. He grew up pretty close to the actual Punxsutawney. And I remember he said this movie makes it look like it's this quaint little New England paradise. It's like a shithole, apparently.
Total mess.
It's apparently awful.
I'm not shocked.
But yeah, it's actually shot in Woodstock, Illinois. So again, he has those Chicago roots. It unfortunately does damage Bill Murray and Howard Ramis' relationship.
What happened? I never looked into it.
I guess Bill Murray just had a different approach on it. Murray wanted to be more dramatic, I think, and philosophical, and Harold Ramis really wanted to emphasize the comedy elements of the story, and he's exactly right. But I think at that point in his career, Bill Murray really wanted to be like this, maybe like Cary Grant, almost like, not a goofy guy, and no, like Harold Ramis is like, he's smug, he's sarcastic, like he's, especially in the beginning, he doesn't really learn much
It's
until...
a total prick.
Yeah.
He actively does not learn his lesson. Almost.
He doesn't. But for whatever reason, their relationship is damaged. They make up while Harold Ramis is on his deathbed. But that's it. It's such a shame because it's their best collaboration, and it's just a shame they didn't. It obviously put an end to any potential Ghostbusters projects for the foreseeable future. But following, I don't know how the fuck he follows up Groundhog Day with Stewart Saves His Family, which I had never seen.
I didn't. I was going to watch it, and you sent me a text. It was just like, what a piece of garbage.
For some reason, I was confused that like Stewart Saves His Family was the Mr. Bill movie. Like, isn't there like a live action Mr. Bill movie? Where
I
it's
hope
like,
not.
There's something like that. So I was confused at first, but once I realized what this was, I was just like,
How long? It's got to be like 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's about 90 minutes. But I think Wayne's World ruined the SNL movie thing because that became such a huge hit. And then you have this, and then you have It's Pat. Like, they tried to just do it with any remotely popular character.
Any of the recurring,
and this really feels like Wayne's World because it's the show within the show. Like,
they did that same
concept that he...
SNL is so devoid of creativity. Like, all the talk show skits and the game show skits and the fucking Stuart Smalley skits.
But that's what I'm saying. So much of SNL's sketches are shows that the audience is viewing. So when you do a movie, you have to address that. And it just got really tired. This is written by Franken. Actually, it's Howard Ramis that comes to Al Franken after reading a book he wrote in character that wants to make it into a movie. Because, again, Howard Ramis has like those cool conceptual things like, hey, 12-step program. We'll have a chance to say some things about that. This character is not the conduit to do that. It's one you just can't. He can't carry a movie.
It was annoying.
Yeah,
I remember as a kid liking the Stuart Smalley sketch.
I'm not familiar with them. I went into it completely blind.
Literally, you're waiting for him to go. He looks in the mirror and affirms himself. Like, that was always the punchline. Yeah. I'm good. I forget the line.
So in this, he goes back home. There's a death in the family, and he has to go back home. One of the saving graces of the movie is his family. Shirley Knight plays his mom. The great Harris Yulin plays his father, who appears in a couple other of Howard Ramis movies. Vincent D'Onofrio plays his brother. There's some fun stuff there. The father's an alcoholic. It ends with them trying to have it like a serious intervention. It's really misguided. It's not. This character is not made to be featured in the film.
I've never heard anyone say a fucking word about this movie.
It's so disappointing to follow up Groundhog Day with this movie because it doesn't feel like a Howard Ramis movie. It doesn't feel like, it feels like no-name generic director that just did this. It's a shame.
You like Al Franken at all?
I don't really know much about him. I know he had that book where he's on the cover and it's like Giant of the Senate. He looks real smug about.
He had a bunch of books.
Yeah. Whenever I would go to like a cheap used book fair,
always
dozens of Al Franken novels,
like Lies and the Liars Who Told, all that bullshit. I thought he should not have resigned from the Senate, but that's a whole
nother conversation.
I don't even agree with the fucking guy. Like, he's funny. I don't give a fuck about his politics, but what he resigned for, I did not find it resignation worthy.
Well,
apology worthy, sure.
I didn't find this movie
apology worthy, maybe on this film.
He needs to apologize for this.
Nothing redeeming.
Harris Yulin.
So big,
Shirley Knight,
big
really
no
great.
Recommend from you.
No recommend on Stewart Saves His Family. Skip Stewart Saves His Family. I don't know if I'll recommend. I find enjoyable things in his next movie, which is Multiplicity.
Never saw it all the way through myself, but funny Keaton, multiple funny Keatons.
And here's the thing about Multiplicity that I wish touched on more. There's a great... you can go on YouTube and find these where it's called The Dumbest Thing As Carl Pilkington Ever Said. Which, and if you really look into them, Carl Pilkington's not dumb. It's just his things don't get taken. But
for those of you that don't know, Carl Pilkington was a friend of
Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. They did a podcast a long time ago. But they ask Carl, they say, something about if you were a clone. And Carl says, how would I know which one I am? And Ricky Gervais just says, that's the stupidest thing that any human's ever said. Laughs hysterically. But if the idea is you're being replicated, your memories are being replicated, how would you know which one you are? That's the crisis of it.
It's like The Prestige.
Yeah, and that's what I wish this movie played into more of. I think it's called Living with Yourself. It was on Netflix a while ago. It was Paul Rudd. It was the same thing, but that was the whole argument with that was that the guy started to take his life over because he had his emotions, his feelings, his memories. In Multiplicity, it surprises me how quickly second Michael Keaton quickly doesn't want anything to do with his, like, starts seeing another woman.
I gotta ask you, because I haven't seen, like, I never saw the full thing. How does he get cloned?
Harris Yulin just happens to, have this secret thing where he clones people.
Okay.
And
how does it end?
So he clones himself once, then he clones himself again because they're still too busy, and then the clones clone themselves. So the third one's like dumb. It's like,
yeah.
And it ends with him saving his marriage, and the three clones drive off together to go live across the country somewhere. It's a little long. It's like 2 hours long.
I wish I could remember. Me and some friends back in the day came up with a plot for Multiplicity 2, and it was really dark, I have a feeling. And I cannot remember what the plot was, but I have a feeling he battles his clones or something.
I will say I give the movie credit in the fact that they all end up banging the wife.
I was going to say, yeah, they all...
Even the dumb one. It's hilarious. Andie MacDowell, you're...
Oh, wow. She has been good in films. I don't want to shit on her too much, but she's just terrible sometimes.
Yeah.
Like asleep.
But there is, like I said, Harris Yulin's in it. Eugene Levy has a really fun part in it. I just wish it really tapped into that philosophical thing that Groundhog Day did a little bit more. But, yeah, it's fine. It
did okay.
It did okay, yeah. Follows that up in 1999 with Analyze This, which we touched on a little bit earlier when you were talking. I feel like the big thing about this movie is it comes out around the same time as The Sopranos.
I should have looked into it. I don't know why I didn't. I think I got sidetracked. Anywho, yeah, the timing on that.
I think it was 2 months after The Sopranos.
And then you did that Lampoon's video, and I'm looking at there was that fucking Don's Analyst.
Oh, yeah.
Or Analyst, I should say, with
yeah.
Kevin Pollak.
Kevin Pollak and Robert Loggia. I don't even know what that really was.
This off?
No, I don't think this was rip off.
Because this happens a lot in Hollywood, where there's like 3 scripts running around that are basically the same thing,
right? And then they all rush them into production.
Ants, Deep Impact, Armageddon. There was a lot of that going on in the '90s, but yeah, what? Like what?
I don't know what the deal. I mean,
was there any controversy there at the time? Of like,
I don't think so.
What the fuck?
You have to understand too. I don't think people knew The Sopranos was going to be such a huge phenomenon.
Very true. And you know what? I think so. I hadn't seen Analyze That or Analyze This, I should say. Came out in '99. It's 2020. I probably haven't seen it in 15 years. So I watched it again. Maybe it's because I'm so entrenched in Sopranos shit. I didn't care for this film.
It soils the movie a little bit. Yeah.
It's not a very good movie.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I think,
dude, it's the same scene over and over.
If the Sopranos didn't exist, I could see how this movie could have some kind of an edge to it.
It's not bad, but and honestly, like, I'm not a huge Billy Crystal fan. He's good in it. He's funny. He's fine. And I like him more as a straight man, playing off like an idiot, crazy De Niro character. But dude, it's the same scene over and over. Hey, Doc, I'm having a dream. I can't treat you right now. This is crazy.
Isn't Elizabeth Bracco in it as well?
Lorraine?
No, Elizabeth, her sister.
Maybe. Who the hell's she?
I'm gonna look it up. She is in it. She plays Mary Vitti. She played
Mary, Vito's mother,
yes.
or wife.
Yes.
Yeah. Spoiled guinea brat.
I just watched something called Trees Lounge. You ever seen that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those similar Sopranos cast, and I think that's when David Chase did Sopranos. He hired a lot of those people because of Trees Lounge.
It's a very repetitive film.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's, hey, Doc, I need your help. I can't do this. You're doing it. Okay.
Yeah. You don't ask me any questions here.
Dude, it's like 15 times that scene replays.
Yeah. And you got like, those typical mob henchman characters.
Yeah, what's his name? He plays Jelly in the film.
Joe Vitarelli.
He's very good. He's great.
Pat Cooper's in it too, right?
Pat Cooper.
We'll come back to this a little bit because we're going to talk about the sequel, but in between Analyze This and that is Bedazzled, which I haven't seen in about 20 years probably, so I did watch.
I never saw it all the way through.
It's not very good.
I love Brendan Fraser.
I do as well. It is a remake of a 1967 British film that stars Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. So I hate, if there's nothing, I hate this trope in a movie where you're not really God, and then like there's like magic tricks happen and it's like.
Well, explain to people that don't know Bedazzled.
Bedazzled basically point is he agrees to sell his soul to the devil, who's played by Elizabeth Hurley.
In her probably prime. Actually, I don't want to say that. When she was young, I mean, she looks amazing here.
Yeah.
when she was, dude, she was probably one of the top 3 most beautiful
Of
women
course.
on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
You know, familiar with Sharp?
No.
It was a Sean Bean. I don't know if it was a miniseries or show. Sharp. He was like a military officer, and she
Okay.
was in that.
Pre-Austin Powers or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, she's gorgeous.
Wow.
And she's
Looks great now too. By the way,
I will say that I think that's one of the inspired differences this movie makes is the casting of her.
agreed. Who plays the devil in the original? Is it Peter Cook or Doug?
I believe it's Peter Cook.
Okay.
Yeah. So Brendan Fraser plays this nebbish, awkward guy who starts to wish for things, and there's always like a catch. Like he wants to be beautiful and have the girl of his dreams and be rich and powerful, but it turns out he's like a cocaine dealer. So like but like all of them, I don't know if the original does this, but in this, like it's Brendan Fraser in makeup playing different versions of himself. Like
I always remember the basketball one where
it's
he's like
frightening.
giant.
It's frightening.
Yeah, he looks really odd.
But the joke is he has a small dick. Like that's the
that was the gag, right?
and it's just like
I have seen bits of this now that I
It's-
think about it.
and I think they even cut a few out, but that's really the whole movie. It's like, I want this instead now, and then another vignette where
Why does the devil keep giving him wishes?
she's fucking with him. That's the
Oh,
whole
she's
thing.
just toying with him?
Yeah, and
Generally, when you do the wish things, you get 3.
yeah, and there's a couple like at one point he meets the God character who's a guy in prison, is a young black guy in prison with him, and then at the end God and the devil are playing chess. There's a couple like interesting things that way, but again, I wish he just leaned a little bit more into the philosophical that Groundhog Day did.
Yeah, I
Because
wish
this
she
one
would
is
have.
it's just pure silliness. It's not.
Yeah, she should have taken her top off.
That would have saved the movie.
Yeah, fuck philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not really the devil. He's just embodying this human woman. Yeah, it's just those. I hate those stupid moments where it's like, wait a minute, how did you just appear over here? I don't like.
It's you see it coming. You know what I've been doing recently, and I don't do it out loud, but I'll be watching stuff like literally anything, especially anything new, and I'm watching a scene, and in my head I say the line. The fucking character says the line. Like, the
Yeah.
writing is awful.
Bedazzled, unfortunately, really doesn't do that well at the box office. So he's kind of like he hits a rough patch here.
I remember that not doing very good.
Yeah. And I think he's starting to do movies that other people are doing at the time, and I think that becomes a big problem with him. Like, and that's my whole thing with Year One is he was making an Apatow movie. Like the man that arguably inspired Apatow is now making that type of movie. And it doesn't work.
No.
And I will say this about Harold Ramis. I think he was just so goddamn kind and such a sweetheart that actors like he was afraid to like be up front and be kind of a dick with actors, and you have to be.
Well, definitely with like an actor, a comedic actor who's like, no, this is funny. What's he going to do? He's a nice guy. And quite frankly, I think that suffers in his directing.
Yeah.
Is that he's not a bad director. He's pretty fucking good, actually. But, you look at someone like he's not, I don't think he's going to fight for an artistic vision. Whereas
No, I don't either.
another, like a real prick who is like, no, this is how we're doing it. I want it shot this way. I want you standing and breathing this way. Ramis was never giving direction like that.
Of course not. And that's what Year One becomes. Which
I was so hyped for that when it was coming out. Never saw it.
So yeah, after Bedazzled comes Analyze That, Harold Ramis' only sequel. And I will say this. I've seen this movie, I think, more than the first one. I haven't seen it in a while. But there is that, like, the De Niro character is now a consultant on a mob movie. I know that's part of the plot. So you're really starting to get into that. I don't know if that...
It's like meta or almost? Or...
Yeah, I feel like...
I do not... I have seen this movie.
Okay.
I remember nothing.
Oh, yeah. I don't
And
remember
I
much
didn't
about
watch... After I watched Analyze This again, I was like, that wasn't very good.
Yeah, well, this one also doesn't do very well.
Analyze This was a hit, too, wasn't it? It was a big hit.
Yeah, well, because, again, Sopranos hadn't existed at that point. It was a fresh concept.
And I don't think people had been seeing... This is before Meet the Parents, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people are too used to De Niro in that comedic role. And he's...
Well, now it's all he fucking does
I
anymore.
know. He is funny. Don't get me wrong. But even in this, it's way too like, yo. That was such a big line at the time. Remember? You got a gift. It's cringy. Like all the faces he's doing, and he cries in it. It's really bad. I really thought Analyze This was going to be way better. I did not care for it. I was shocked.
So that is 2002, as Analyze That. It does not do well financially. In 2005, we come to The Ice Harvest, which, again, like I said, I think that's why I'm like so bummed Harold Ramis got sick, because I feel like he was trying to do some new things with this movie.
If he would have stayed on the track that he started with Ice Harvest, I would be very excited to see what he did
Yeah.
next.
So Ice Harvest comes out in 2005. Obviously, it's a holiday movie. It comes out on Thanksgiving weekend, that Wednesday, November 23rd. It opens number 12 on that day, and then from there it goes to 10, 11. It finally hits number 9 on that Monday, the 28th, but that's as close as it gets to the top. So not a financial success by any means. It seems to get some good critical accolades, but like we were talking about, it just fell off and it got lost and people don't talk about it.
Well, it's the risk when you want to counter program. And what I mean by that is it's Christmas time. Let's put out our Christmas movies and everyone's happy and cheery. And we're going to put out a fucking mean, nasty. And also, I'm going to jump in a second to end this ridiculously stupid meme argument of what is a Christmas movie? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? If the movie is about the holiday of Christmas, it's a Christmas movie. If it's set during Christmas, it's set during... Fucking shut up!
Yeah, you can still watch it. It doesn't make a difference.
Shut up. I just everyone needs to shut up.
I don't
Joe, shut up.
I don't really think like Christmas movies are a thing.
They're
like,
not.
yeah, it's just
It's a holiday.
Yeah.
You're using the holiday as a time to set a film.
Well,
so is Ice Harvest a Christmas movie? Sure.
yeah. Well, this definitely does a lot of new things. Like you said, I love that miserable. It's like not only that, there's some elements in the set design of just like soulless. Like Pete's house, it's like
Which was Charlie's house.
yeah, it's completely devoid of any sense of
Clean,
warmth
modern,
or like
yeah.
home. It's great.
All the strip clubs, nice and dingy.
It's funny too. When I'm watching this movie, it even for me, it's ticking the boxes of a Ryan Lancello enjoyable production. It's like it doesn't spoon feed you what's going on behind this.
At the end, it does a little.
A little bit like when the movie starts, you're not like
No.
you don't really know how they've got this money.
And the movie gets
Yep.
right to it.
Starts.
There's no fucking preamble. There's no bullshit. He is immediately taking the money. That's how the movie starts. And I cannot be happier when movies get to it.
So we should set up the two lead characters are. I wouldn't even say maybe two lead characters. Billy Bob Thornton is in it way less than Cusack.
You'd be surprised at how little he's in it when you watch it.
He's marketed as being like the other guy. But John Cusack plays Charlie, who is a mob attorney, and he at some point sees an opportunity to skim some money. And there's that great line that Gerard has later in the film where, he says to Renata, what do you want? The brain with no dick or the dick with no brain? And that's them. Like
Yeah,
it's
the two of them.
It's one of them has the brain but doesn't have the courage, and one of them is just this brash asshole that's not very intelligent.
Randy Quaid, for the few minutes he's on screen, he's got some fucking choice lines. I think he calls him like a whiskey dick lawyer or something. It's so good.
That like balding, overweight Randy Quaid is so funny. And
Well, that's
so
the other
great.
thing, man. Like, with Ramis dying, like, who knows? Like, I love this Randy Quaid playing against type. He's not, I'm Cousin Eddie or
Yeah.
Uncle Eddie or whatever the fuck he was. He's the heavy.
Yeah.
He's the mob boss. And
Yeah.
he is intimidating.
Yeah, you don't see him to the last 20 minutes, if maybe even not.
Even that. But he's good.
You
His presence is well felt. He is a Midwest
Apparently,
crime boss.
Harold Ramis was trying to get Bill Murray for that, and his phone calls went
I thought he was trying to get him for the Cusack
unanswered.
role.
No, not the Cusack role.
Oh, he was trying to get him for the mob boss.
Gerard, yeah.
He would have been good. Randy Quaid's great.
He's
in
perfect in this,
Yeah.
especially like that Midwest.
He is
mob
a
guy.
Yeah, he's a Kansas City mob boss.
So Vic, I guess he's involved. Billy Bob Thornton character is involved in like this blackmail pornography scheme, but also runs strip clubs.
Yeah, as far as I know, like this is another thing I like. Like Charlie's a mob lawyer. You don't see him practice law or do anything for the mob. He's just kind of walking around and drinking. Yeah, the Vic character by Billy Bob Thornton they keep saying he's a pornographer. The Randy Quaid character owns the strip clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not quite sure where the Vic character comes in. I think he's just kind of one of those guys. He's in the crew, as it were. But yeah,
on paper he might be like the general manager of this.
Sure. But yeah, they always refer to him as a pornographer.
Okay.
But they don't ever get into specifics, which I like that
I like it too.
vagueness, especially in a setting like this, story-wise. You don't need all the particulars. Because a lot of times the story, it will reveal those particulars.
Yeah.
And this one does that.
Well, and there's that great scene too where in the beginning, like you said, we don't really know the specifics, but Charlie goes to take the money out of Vic's car, and they have that moment of like, oh, we didn't talk about who's going to keep the money, and
Hold the money, yeah.
So little things like that are left happening in the moment that are you don't have that plan, you don't have that. It just kind of they do it, and then they're figuring it out. But there's some really great locations in this, like those sleazy. And I wrote a few of the names down. The Sweet Cage is one strip club. The Blue Velvet is one.
Which apparently, I think it was the Velvet Touch.
Velvet Touch.
That was the massage parlor, you know. But apparently, the Sweet Cage was a restaurant Ramis and his family used to go to as a kid. So that's always good.
And Ned Bellamy plays one of the.
So this might be. I'm looking at the cast list right here. This is a phenomenally good cast. I want to single out with Ned Bellamy. He's if he had more scenes in this movie, Joe would be cutting together one of those videos he's done, like the one for fucking, my God, Captain Albano and Wrong Guy. If he had more scenes, we'd be doing one of those, but he doesn't.
Yeah,
and he's so fucking good.
There's not really room for him, but when he does pop up, it's great.
But there's one scene where he does a lot of foreshadowing. This character exists to foreshadow almost, but he's so funny. Most of you will remember him as Eddie. From the Seinfeld episode, The Fatigues. He's the weird guy in the mailroom that's wearing fatigues that Elaine promotes to like vice president or something because she's afraid of him. But he's just a vulgar. He's always angry in this film. 2 bits of foreshadowing. You see that he kind of puts his truncheon down or whatever he's beating people with behind the bar. You see the shotgun. Mm-hmm. So you got Chekhov's shotgun there. But then later, there's a fucking hilarious part where one of the strippers has a black eye. And he's blaming it on that dickhead musician boyfriend. And he's like, what hand should I break? Should I break his right hand? He's asking Charlie, should I break his left hand? And it's just kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
20 minutes later in the movie, maybe even half an hour, a quick cut to this guy getting his fingers bent back in a parking lot. And it's Ned Bellamy as Sidney. And he's got that great ending, too, with the RV. Mm-hmm. And he's taking his kids to Six Flags on Christmas Day. It couldn't look worse outside. What Six Flags is out there?
I have no idea.
Is there even one?
It's probably closed. If any.
So funny, though, man. I was fucking dying at that. But he is really good in this movie. And the guy really doesn't do a ton of work.
Yeah, well, so I heard that I listened to some of the interviews with Harold Ramis, and he said he loved this movie because it was about people who have lost any meaning in their lives. And that's really... And it's
they're all going through the motions.
I think that when I first saw this movie, I was a lot younger and I didn't quite. But like, I love that. That's why I always said to you, I should watch A Serious Man again. Like, I love that characters that just can't get.
You would appreciate Serious Man more.
I'm sure I would.
Once again, it's an adult film.
Right.
It's a film for adults.
Yeah, this is not the
movie's wrestling with really big issues of identity and does God exist? Does he speak with me? Kids don't watch that.
Yeah,
go watch Chris Pratt play Schindler or something. I don't know, whatever he's doing this.
So, Charlie is a mob lawyer, and they have skimmed this money, and we find out that one of our favorite actors plays a character named Roy Gellis, who is the kind of the second banana in this the henchman.
It seems like he's like the hitman that comes to town to clean up shit.
And
this is Mike Starr playing Roy Gellis, by the way.
And you know it's Mike Starr but you don't see his face for until the reveal.
But you hear that voice.
You hear the voice.
And it's like
and that intimidating
the presence.
Yeah,
looks like a fucking gorilla in a peacoat, dude. It's ridiculous.
I know you don't watch The Office, but there's one of the only.
I don't watch what the American.
The American, like
I've seen like every episode.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah, I don't watch it anymore because it's not as good as people try to act like it is.
Well, do you remember the one? It's like later season where Mike Starr. Michael thinks he's a mob guy, but he's just a salesman. He's just an insurance salesman. But Michael thinks he's in the mafia.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because Mike Starr is just like, trying to squeeze him. It's great. And he, we loved him in Cabin Boy. So whenever you see him in something,
I'm always happy when Mike Starr pops up.
Yeah, I just told you a while ago. I finally watched Miller's Crossing, and he's phenomenal in that when he pops up in that. And there was something else I saw him in recently. I forget. But anyway, so he's kind of like this. Charlie is shitting his pants because this notorious...
Roy Gellis don't come to town. And it's like, that's so funny. The Billy Bob character, Vic, keeps telling him, like, he's lying to him.
Yeah.
He's like, I just talked to Roy on the phone. Well, what did he want? He wished me a Merry Christmas. It's like, that's not why Roy Gellis is in town.
Like, if he's looking for you, you're getting whacked.
Yeah.
That's what it's come for.
Right.
But he comes in when Charlie's in the bathroom where we see this quote that's written on the bathroom wall in a red Sharpie, which is, do you want to...
As Wichita falls, so falls Wichita Falls, which I found not even remotely interesting or deep or anything. And then when it's revealed that he's the one writing it, I'm like, who cares?
Yeah,
like,
it's not...
It was an odd thing that I didn't feel like went anywhere.
It's probably something more that's developed more in the novel, I would imagine.
I think you're right.
But yeah, that comes from the title of I guess, an album in 1981. Yeah, so we don't see Roy Gellis's face until later in the movie, and when they do reveal it as him, it's such a. I mean, we know it's Mike Starr, like you said, but when
but you just hear he's in the trunk.
Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. But it's great. I love when a character is in something.
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to be fun for an actor. Like, wait, you're not going to see me? It's like, nah, you're kind of in a trunk for most of the time.
Well,
and to jump back with my good friend Vin Diesel, his father told him years ago that, this is not new advice, but there's no small roles. And I remember him saying this when he got Groot. And people were like, dude, you just say Groot and you're not even in the movie. No small roles, baby.
Yeah, well, those fucking merchandise and talking Groot dolls.
But still, Mike Starr in a trunk. It's fucking hilarious. You barely see the guy.
That's what he popped up
His
in.
lines in the trunk are so funny.
He's in Baby's Day Out. He has like 3 lines, and he calls a fake tip in, and he wants money to give the tip in, and they run after they leave. After the parents give him the money for the tip, he goes, "I called because I care," and it's perfect. He's never. Like, whenever he's in a movie, he's utilized perfectly, even if it's one line. And he's perfect as this mob guy. So Charlie starts shitting his pants because Roy Gellis is looking for them. And while you said Billy Bob's character, Vic, is really trying to talk him down, that, hey, he's got family in town. It's why he's just wishing us a happy holiday. And at one of these strip clubs, after he leaves the first one he's at, we see Renata, who is played by Connie Nielsen.
Great actress.
Yeah. And
I want to big recommend here. There was a show years ago. Me and my buddy Joe Mealy loved. It was called Boss with Kelsey Grammer.
Oh yeah,
he plays the mayor of Chicago, and like he's just a straight gangster. It's fucking awesome. She's the wife in the show. She's very good. The show is so over the top and ridiculous. It's only 2 seasons. I really recommend it.
Kelsey Grammer has done so many shows since.
Big fan of the Gram Man.
Yeah,
love Kelsey.
What's that one?
And I heard he's a fucking total stick in the mud. I love when they're assholes.
He had this show on a sitcom with David Koechner where they were like relatives that had to move in together. It was like a 3-camera laugh track sitcom.
What was that? I like David Koechner.
And,
I always have.
It was on Leno. He was on someone. They were talking about, what happened with this show? And he was like, well, it was, I had to drive an hour. We weren't getting a view. So I just called the producers up and said, when can we put the bolt in this thing? Like I don't want to do it anymore.
You ever see the video of him falling off stage?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Someone on YouTube has cut it with the Frasier theme song. Anyway, yeah. She's great. She's Renata. Charlie is in love with her, and she is having this crisis because I guess the Wichita politicians are trying to get rid of strip clubs in the area,
No more nude
dancing, which is a big problem because that's. And not that I didn't know this,
it's her livelihood.
But this movie definitely jogged in my memory that they have to rent. Strippers have to rent the stage.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
Actually, I did not really. I was like, oh, I guess they do that. I don't know what strippers do.
Well, I love that you and I have worked terrible restaurants that are open 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that line when Dennis, I think the character is, and he's like, if you want the hot shifts, you got to work the cold ones. And
that's the name of the game in the restaurant biz. You gotta work Tuesday night so you can make money on Friday night. That's how it goes.
I guess anywhere there's tips to be made, that philosophy carries through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see that in this world, in this movie.
And funny enough, the original pick for the Renata character was Monica Bellucci.
Oh, really?
Obviously a beautifully, classically gorgeous woman. Connie Nielsen's no slouch in the looks department, but I'm glad she got the role because Monica Bellucci is too pretty for Wichita.
I agree. Well, not only that, and Connie Nielsen has kind of that, like...
She's handsome.
Well, that, like...
Her mouth, yes.
Femme fatale kind of, like, edge, like that.
Absolutely, but she's a little old.
Yeah.
The lines around the mouth, the teeth are a little funky.
For what this movie calls for.
She'd be that person.
Yes.
And her accent's a little odd. You don't quite... He even says, he's like, I never asked you where you were from. And she don't answer. Monica Bellucci, who I love, she's a great actress, but Connie Nielsen was a better... It's sometimes, your first choice fucks up. The second one's better.
So, and again, I'm not annoyed that the movie kind of doesn't make it clear, but... She also works for Gerard, or is this like
everyone works for Gerard?
But
he runs the town.
Do her and Vic work for this? Like, is her strip club competing with Vic's?
Everyone's under the umbrella of Gerard.
Okay,
that's how I looked at it.
Yeah,
That's generally how it goes.
Yeah, especially
unless
in a
there's
small
competing
town like that. Yeah,
outfits or whatever.
well then, so she is in an incriminating photo with a councilman.
No, she wants the photo.
Yeah, but she's in it.
That's not her.
Yes, it is.
All right, we're going to do our classic break here so he can bring up the photo for me. That's a blonde, dude. It ain't her. All right, quick pause, folks. We'll be right back.
So we actually, I'm going to err with you're correct on this because I thought that was the case too because it makes much more sense. She wants the photo because this councilman.
Yeah, she wants to blackmail the
and
councilman.
it wouldn't make any sense if it were her in the photo.
Well, it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
He's fucking someone that's not his wife.
Yeah, and she's going to use the pressure to make sure he doesn't get rid of the strip clubs.
What I didn't understand was why does Vic have it and why doesn't he give it to her?
Well, I assume if he's a pornographer, right?
Yeah.
He has some kind of. They have all those rooms in the back of the strip club. I assume they're monitored.
Yeah.
And
because if you're in a small town like Wichita Falls, you're banging hookers, you know you're being filmed.
Yeah.
Like you're going to
like if you're a fucking councilman.
Your role, you are making such
It's like Jerry Springer paying a prostitute with a check. Like,
Yeah.
he had to expect that.
Yeah, wow, what a great story. I forgot about that. Can I, real quick, I have to say this. This is a major shout out. I'm going to fuck his name up, and I feel bad as a fucking paisan. David Pasquisi as Councilman Williams.
Oh, yeah.
He has one of my favorite roles of all time. It's one of the funniest performances. It's one of my favorite shows ever. It's Strangers with Candy.
Right.
He plays Stu the Meat Man.
Okay.
This is David Pasquisi. It is the funniest fucking thing. Every time Stu is on screen, I have to replay the scenes like 5 times. It's so insanely funny. That show, I cannot recommend enough.
Pasquisi's also in Groundhog Day for a split second. He's the psychiatrist. When
Believe you are correct.
He has that line where it's just like, can we make a time to come in next week? And Bill Murray just leaves.
It's got to be Pasquesi. It can't be
yeah.
Pasquisi.
Look, you know, I'm the wrong guy.
You are the
to
wrong
say
guy
last
for that.
names.
But he very briefly plays Councilman Williams. Guys, go watch Strangers with Candy. Email me. I'll buy you the fucking complete series. It's that worth it. It's so good. We are missing something like that today.
Pretty much everyone in this movie is a great performer, even though there's not like they don't have huge parts. They're utilized perfectly. They're utilized.
Well, there's the cop that keeps pulling over Charlie.
Yes,
and he's
Officer
played
Tyler.
by Officer Tyler. He's excellent in this. Really funny. It's good, and his ending made me happy because it's played by T.J. Jagodowski, and he's in those horrendously bad Sonic commercials with the 2 guys in the car.
Yeah.
He's the one that's lighter complexion. I hate those commercials so much. And he's really funny in this movie.
Well, you know those
and he catches a
commercials,
bullet in the head at the end, so I was happy about that.
They would pull improvisers from Second City.
Yeah.
Put them in a car with a camera and say,
Okay.
yeah. Have you ever been to a Sonic?
I have been to a
Completely
Sonic.
underwhelming.
Absolutely underwhelming.
So yeah, they start to. Roy Gellis comes to this other strip club looking for Charlie, and I love how everyone's making an excuse they haven't seen him when he just left. So he does.
It's a good little character thing that goes unsaid that the bartenders, who are everyone's a shitbag in this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has a speaking line generally. They cover for him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great tell that they like him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it shows that they like him because Roy Gellis is going to fucking kill you if he finds out that
Yeah.
you're hiding, Charlie Arglist.
Yeah.
Arglist, by the way, is deceitful in German.
Oh, that's clever.
Something else
Clever
too.
little
It
tie-in.
means something else, but.
So after he leaves the second strip club, and or third strip club, I guess, because he goes back to the first one to retrieve the photo of the councilman for her. And as he's leaving, he's calling Vic to say, "Hey, Roy Gellis is still asking for us." He falls, breaks his cell phone, has to go find Vic, and he finds him at this restaurant where, Vic's kind of pissed that he has come to find him. And
Hey, don't you think we should maybe not be seen together?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. And
Billy Bob, I mean, fuck it. I love Billy
yeah,
Bob.
he's fantastic.
He's just always,
Yeah.
always I love him.
And
People forget, just a quick aside culturally, how big he was with the whole Angelina Jolie thing.
Oh, yeah.
They were, you had
every tabloid and every.
I know, they're so weird, blah, blah. It's almost funny that he just totally escaped that. He's just Billy Bob Thornton now.
That's true.
I almost think Fargo helped him, the show.
He's so great in it, too.
That first season, his role alone, it's
That feels very
so-
similar to this. There's that, like, Coen Brothers inspiration, but it's not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Just like that show, which
Right.
I stopped watching.
Second season's really good.
I love the second. A lot of people bitch about the end.
Oh, I thought it was perfect.
They have a point. We can get into this
I
another
even thought
time.
the third season was okay.
I didn't mind the
haven't
third
seen
season.
fourth.
I liked what's his face, Thulis as the villain.
Oh yeah,
He was very good.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the fourth. I heard it's
I didn't
okay.
either. Yeah, I those first two are pretty masterful. They're pretty great. Pretty great television.
And especially Fargo, almost a perfect film.
Yeah.
I remember being like, what the fuck?
Well, not only that, how it ties in, like the world's. Yeah.
The tying in was okay. I didn't love it. The whole Oliver Platt
Hey,
thing.
speaking of Oliver Platt,
This fucking cast in this Ice Harvest.
right as this happens,
I swear to God, if there's one thing we can be doing with this show, I'm pretty happy. It seemed like we got people to see Wrong Guy.
yeah,
I
for sure.
really hope people watch this movie after this.
Yeah.
And this becomes a bit of just a little juice. It's such a fucking good movie, and the cast is tip top.
So Charlie runs into his friend Pete at this restaurant
After Vic leaves.
who's played by Oliver Platt, the fantastic Oliver Platt,
Big fans on this show.
who they have in common the fact that Pete is now married to Charlie's ex-wife, Sarah Beth. So they were friends prior, then she left but Charlie seems resigned to the fact that she's left because...
Doesn't care.
Yeah, and I think even Pete is accepting the fact that his life is hell because of her.
And one of the things we have to address is basically the entire time Oliver Platt is on camera, he's playing drunk.
A fantastic drunk.
How much fun must that be? Especially as an Oliver Platt.
Yeah.
And he's doing all the drunk things, but they have that nice moment where Oliver Platt in his inebriated state goes, "You have to hate me. You have to resent me for fucking your wife while you were married. I was fucking her while you were married to her." And he goes, John Cusack's character goes, "It just kind of makes me curious. Who's she fucking now?"
Yeah, it's a great...
And because he has made a mistake.
Yeah.
He realizes he's it's a pretty girl, but
Well, there's that great moment too where he comes back to the house, because that's the thing. He drops him off at his house.
the maitre d' says, "Hey, you know him. Can you take him home? He can't
Yeah.
drive." Charlie's ex-wife,
Sarah Beth,
who is now married to Pete,
right?
they're having dinner at Sarah Beth's parents' house.
Yeah.
So that's where Charlie takes Pete.
And I love the contrast, like we said, with how Pete and Sarah Beth's house feels shallow, where they're at this big, warm,
almost
Christmassy mansion.
A John Hughes house.
Yeah.
Very wasp.
And it's such a funny scene where he's just like completely obliterated. Like the family has contempt for both of them, almost more so for Pete now.
Isn't that weird?
Than they do for Charlie.
And
who's
he's
just
got the
kinda like-
gloves on.
Yeah.
And he's eating the turkey leg. But there's one thing I love in movies. It's when an old white-haired man, he just is disgusted with the younger men around him.
Yeah.
He's just like, "You two make me ashamed to be a man." I love that shit. And then Oliver Platt just lays into
Yeah.
him. I
And
paid
then-
for your leg, your
Yeah.
mortgage.
And then you even have that great, where the older kid, the son, is trying to talk to the daughter about what a piece of shit the father is. Because don't listen to him, he lies. Like,
Well, that's another thing that's so good about this is how you have to thread the line when you're writing a in one night story. You can't sit there and have that Charlie's son go, "This is all the reasons I don't like you." It's better if it's just like, he lies. He's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, you figure it out as it goes. And that's why, once again, I like how this movie immediately,
yeah.
money taken,
Yeah.
balls in
Hits the
motion.
ground running.
Yeah.
So then that's when they go for another drink. And bar's closing up. The bartender's like, "Look, guys, I'll give you one drink, but you can't pay for it. Register's closed. Make it quick." And Pete immediately starts just giving her shit, giving her boyfriend shit.
Well,
who's
yeah, he's
sitting at the
hitting on
bar.
her.
Yeah. Saying that when he gets home, he's going to have dreams about her. And it's almost like that uncomfortable. Like I've been in a situation like that with you where you're like,
No.
well, not that
No, I'm
bad.
kidding. Of course you've been in that with
where
me.
you're just like, you want to make it uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've literally said to you, get ready.
Yeah, like and that's happened to me plenty of times with you.
You're not the only one.
Let's leave. We need to leave now. And he ends up getting the shit kicked out of him. He gets kicked in the groin, which he thinks one of his balls has gone up in his body.
leads to a very funny scene later
Bounce me.
with Officer Tyler.
Oh yeah, when he pulls up in there.
Yeah.
He keeps. I love that too. That running thread where he keeps showing up at all the worst times.
It's a
and
very
it leads to his death.
It's a classical film in that sense where it's hitting tropes, but it's doing it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the tropes you were bitching about earlier, which you saw it coming.
Right.
Like this is a movie where when Charlie's trying to get Pete's nut out of his stomach,
Yeah.
you think to yourself, like, man, what if the cop showed up, right? And then he does, and you're like, oh, of course he would. Like, there isn't a time where knowing what will happen works.
Yeah, well, even think we should point out the cops are in Bill Gerard's pocket too.
Well, he keeps saying, he's like, hey, you're not going to forget? Mention me to Bill
my
Gerard.
name,
What's
yeah.
my name? He covers up the name tag.
The first time he pulls him over, he has an open flask in the car. So Bill Gerard owns this town.
Well, straight up, Officer Tyler says, he's like, be careful because next time you might not get pulled over by someone that knows better.
Yeah, right. And so he takes him into he throws up in Charlie's car. And then they go back to this house, this soulless, icy blue kind of gross house. I love that he finds a photograph of Sarah Beth with a brand new Mercedes that I guess Pete had bought her or given her for Christmas, and he takes the Mercedes. He leaves Pete there, who's just passed out on the floor at that point, and he takes this Mercedes. He heads back to what is the Velvet one?
Velvet Touch.
And
because that's where Vic wanted to meet him.
Yeah, Vic wanted to...
He got a message from I think it was Sydney. Mm-hmm. The Ned Bellamy character was just like, hey, Vic's looking for you. He's at the Velvet Touch.
And he finds some blood around. No one's around. And eventually he finds a finger in a vise in like the back room. And there's blood everywhere. There's no signs of anyone. So he goes to Vic's house, and as he pulls up, he notices a muzzle flash go off in the house. And the car parked across the street. He checks, goes in. It's got Roy Gellis's wallet in there. So he's like, oh, shit. So he walks in there and finds Vic's wife dead, shot in the head.
Well, at first he doesn't realize. She's kind of kneeling over the presents.
She's crouched over the presents in front of the tree.
Gladys?
Yeah, Gladys.
Yeah.
And she's dead. So he immediately freaks out.
Her face is blown off.
Yeah. And he can't see it from behind, but then Vic appears. And we have this conflict out the movie. Did Roy Gellis really kill it? Like, that's what Vic says, that Gellis shot his wife because she wouldn't tell him where the money was or where he was. And you start to, almost when we get to see Gellis, you start to side with him. Like, oh, fuck, he's right.
Well, Vic makes a comment. He's just like, yeah, Roy overestimated how much love was actually between me and Gladys.
So he's like, well, where is Gellis? He's like, yeah, I got him right here. And he's in a Foot Locker. He's in a trunk. I don't even know how he got him in there.
They don't really explain that, what happened there. I think he did wing him. Like, he caught a bullet.
Yeah.
And, whatever. Yeah, Vic stuffed them in there. But...
And so, again, never having seen Mike Starr's face, we're now hearing his voice again, muffled.
Oglis, is that you?
His voice is so perfect for this.
So good.
And
we need to make a movie just so we can put him in it. So he's like, we gotta go dump him in the lake.
Yeah, we have to get rid of him.
him.
And I love they finally get this fucking giant steamer trunk into the car. And, Vic is pleased it's a Mercedes, and there really is so much nice room in these cars.
Yeah, he doubted the space.
And Charlie has taken the finger with him. I think it's a thumb. Mm-hmm. And he's, by the way, whose thumb is this? He says, oh, hey, Roy, good news. Charlie found your thumb. He's all fucked up in this trunk. He's missing a thumb.
Well, that's the thing I like. They don't explain, like...
how all this went down.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
How the fuck... They're at the Velvet Touch. Roy loses a thumb.
Right.
And then we find him at Vic's house, and they had another dust-up.
Gladys is dead. He's in the trunk. So if you see any of the marketing for this movie, the poster is the two of them lugging his trunk around. And that's really the only thing I remember.
Mike Starr's on the poster, then.
Hey, put Mike Starr. He got top billing. I wonder if I would imagine he's in there, right?
What?
The trunk.
I always wonder that when there is that with actors.
Yeah.
He's not. He is not in there.
Some guys would probably insist that they did it, but I would imagine...
I would.
Well, you're also not...
I'm kind of fucked up.
Well, no, but you're relatively thin and small, and
I could fit in the
trunk. Like, Mike Starr is a huge dude. That's what makes it hilarious that they're lugging this.
He would have been so crammed in that thing.
Well, so he starts getting into Charlie's because they're driving this Mercedes. He's in the back in the trunk, and the two of them are in the front. And Roy starts feeding Charlie all this information, like, don't be stupid. Like, he's gonna kill you.
He's gonna kill you.
Yeah, like that was his plan all along. Like, and so fed up, doesn't want to talk anymore. Vic shoots one end of the trunk because he forgot which end his head was on, and he just stops talking. So we're assumed that he's dead. And they take him to this frozen over lake, and Charlie's paranoid at this point because he's starting to believe that it's true that he's going to kill him.
Here's one thing I did not. This is a good scene.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like this. So Vic's got a gun in his belt, right? Stuffed into his waist there. And Charlie sees it and he's like, "Come on, like really? You're gonna listen to Roy? Like, let's push the trunk. I'm not gonna shoot you." But then when they're pushing the trunk, he takes the gun out and is holding it.
And he's pointing it at him. Yeah,
That was so dumb.
Yeah.
That was literally the worst directing choice. Maybe it's in the book. It's so bad because right there you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
yeah,
Literally just put it down at the end of
what
the
are you
pier.
yeah. He could have gotten away with it if he didn't do that.
It's dude, and when you watch the movie, he literally like takes it out and
And
holds
he's holding it slowly.
It's so it's bad,
It is a strange choice.
really bad. Anywho, they get to the end of the pier.
Get to the end of the pier.
As they're pushing it,
Yeah.
Charlie notices one of the latches is off.
Yeah, and from there, we should also point out that he has a gun in the trunk because when they first
He pops 4 shots off.
out of the trunk, yeah. And so they assume they think he's dead at this point, but turns out he's not because he's able to wedge the gun out and shoot Vic.
Well, they prop it up, so it's almost like he's being standing,
Right.
To tip it over easier.
Yeah.
And then, what's it open? I forget exactly.
I think it's not that. It's like that. Yeah, that middle part where there's a hole.
Oh, that's right. He blasts out the lock.
Yeah.
Oh, he hits Vic.
And he hits Vic.
And he blasts the lock out.
Right.
Then it opens.
And we finally see Mike Starr's face, and he's
Totally
crammed
crumpled up
into
in there.
this trunk. And he's what is his Charlie's last name?
Arglist.
Arglist, help me out of here. Come on. And he helps him.
He does.
He helps him.
He does help him.
And he doesn't even he can't stand up. He's crunched over, and he's saying like, what did he tell you? I'm here. What do you think I'm here for? Gerard knows what's going on. He knows why
he's
I'm
saying
here.
this the whole time. He's like, "I'm your only hope now, Charlie.
Yeah.
Like, this is it."
So he goes to fatally kill Vic, but Vic calls his bluff, realizes he's out of bullets, and
Six shooter.
shoots him. And we get that great part where he doesn't fall over right away, and Vic is just yelling at him like, "Come
Roy,
on,
you're dead.
you're dead. Fall over, Roy." He eventually does, and then the dock capsizes. The weight,
the pier falls apart.
yeah, and
Takes Roy, the trunk, and Vic. They all fall in.
right. And at this point, Charlie knows what's up. He's not going to help Vic out, but Vic is screaming that the money's not in the bags. That's in the car. That's not them. And I don't think he believes him because he throws Gladys's body on top
Which
of
is
him.
that's the most brutal part of the movie.
Yeah.
When it's like,
He thinks he's coming back for him.
to help. It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Charlie, I know you do it. You're a
knew
good
you'd come
guy."
back.
And then you just see that plastic peek over the edge, and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
no." And then it's so fucked up too, because like he drowns,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that drowning where they're right under the surface,
Yeah.
and they're almost embracing.
He's like arms.
yeah, it's brutal.
I was reading,
Great
like,
shot.
They're like the way they did the scene. Like they used the kind of wax for ice, and it looks really.
Oh, it was a field.
Yeah.
They buried a pool.
Right.
Paraffin.
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Yeah.
And
So
that's, once again, I get back to this is to me Ramis's best looking film.
for sure, I mean, definitely his most compelling and interesting look. Like it definitely visually, yeah.
He tried.
I think he knew he was doing something different here.
This is the problem, and we'll call this a comedy. But with a lot of comedies, the visual aspect is secondary.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get the jokes out. You want to make sure the performance is good, blah, blah, blah. And whereas this one, it's like, it is more cinematic. Like,
Sure.
it's got a whole vibe. It's the
Yeah,
look.
Wichita feels like its own.
Uh-huh.
So he obviously goes to the car, and the money is not in the bags, and he rushes back to save Vic, and he's dead. Like you said, he's embracing the wife's body, and they're just floating a few feet under water. So at this point, he ends up going back to Renata at the sweet cage, and as he pulls up, he notices there's a car in the parking lot with the license plate Top Dog, which is Bill Gerard. And did you forget at this point that Randy Quaid was in the opening credits?
I mean, I've seen the film before.
Oh, see, I hadn't seen it in years, and I was like, who? I've seen all the people. I forgot Randy Quaid. And yeah, he's tied up Renata to a chair.
Which it looks like she's like sleeping.
It looks like she's
almost at
sleeping.
first.
He arrives while Bill Gerard's in the bathroom, looking at the Wichita quote, and is able to run to the front of the bar and get that shotgun that we saw earlier, and brings it back. And I love how like Charlie's just made out to be this weak man. Like even Bill is hammering that in, and
Whiskey Dick Lawyer.
yeah, like you don't have any ball. Like, and he says that line,
Brain with no dick or dick with no brain.
Yeah, perfect. And he's hammering in that Charlie's not going to do anything, or he would have already done it. And so he flies off a shot, then scrapes the wall a little bit, knocks him over, and
he thinks he killed him.
He thinks he killed him, and he didn't. He
was birdshot.
He was birdshot, yeah, all over the face. And again, like Randy Quaid, just like so maniacal and just
menacing.
So great. Yeah, at that point, he's gonna kill them both, right? And he gets off another shot. Well, he kills the cop. He kills Tyler, who wrong place, wrong time for him.
What's going on here?
Yeah, boom. Dead. And he does blast Bill's head off with the shotgun, and the blood is all over Renata. And
I had to note too, goop.
Yeah,
not computer generated.
Yeah,
goop.
It hits her.
It looks good.
And you should say that Bill stabs him in the foot, so he's stuck to the floor with a giant, knife.
Yeah, and it's the classic thing. He's trying to reach the shotgun shell. You know what I mean?
Like you said, all things we've seen before, but done in a really.
They make sense.
Yeah. In this story, they make sense. So she's washing her hair. He's bandaging up his foot, and she says that line, "It did the deed." Is that something that Vic had said earlier? Like, when does he finally put the pieces together about what's going on?
I think what it is that she's being too kind to him almost.
Okay,
and he realizes like, what the it's almost like him. Like everyone else is calling him out earlier in the movie because he's like buying strippers drinks and stuff. So like, what the fuck are you doing?
So he starts to put the pieces together, and we trace back the events of the evening, realizing that when he went to see Vic at dinner, she had just left, her cigarettes are in the ashtray. He starts to piece together that not only was Vic going to kill him, but he was in silent partnership with Renata, and they were going to run away together. And now he's dead. She's going to kill him too. So he goes into the closet and notices that the money is in there in the bags, and when she comes out, straight razor behind her back to kill him, he ends up shooting her. Which
was well played visually, the way they filmed it, because honestly, they're embracing. They're hugging each other, and boom.
Yeah.
You hear him shoot her. And you're like, you prick. And then as she falls away, she slightly slices him. Like, you don't realize she's holding it. It's pretty well done, because in that moment, I'm like, you dummy. What the fuck?
Yeah, she was going to run away with you. No, she
maybe, was trying to rob you a little bit, but whatever. We're all crooks.
So he takes the money, obviously, and it's Christmas morning. We should say it. Yeah, I think we did say it, but it's Christmas Eve. The whole movie takes place on Christmas Eve.
One little thing I want to point out here. He goes, at one point he stops at a gas station, and he buys a bunch of gas station toys for his kids.
Yes, I did forget about that.
And then he goes back to, put them on the tree, and Pete's there, and he's like, take me with you, dude. He's like, I can't do this life anymore. Take me with you. And you think he just kind of leaves them there. I do want to say this, though. You ever been in that situation?
In whose perspective?
I'll put it to you this way. I remember being a kid, and before the families, moved, died, all that stuff. It was a big holiday party, right? And I think it was my dad's uncle. Great guy.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
Breath smells a little funny. Shows up where you're like, I've seen that toy in a gas station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you poor bastard.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and
I remember watching this movie the first time and thinking like, I've gotten those toys, and it's the same thing where the guy, it's a fucking trunk.
Yeah.
It's that they're a mess. You know what I
mean?
Well,
and I think too the like that fluorescent look of that gas station, and just like it's the lowest point. He's already been.
I like to the gas station attendant. He's buying all the shit toys, and the guy's like, "Oh, big spender." And Charlie goes, "You got kids?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Then shut the fuck up."
Yeah, that's great. And they're the plastic army men and knockoff doll. It's like those dollar
for
store
a kid
terrible.
that's like 16.
Yeah,
like, he ain't gonna, it's all garbage.
And I think for him the point is that he's been called out by his son, saying that he forgot it's Christmas. He would have gotten his presents already. So he's trying to make up for it. But yeah, like you said, he does end up back at the ex-wife's house where Pete lives. And Pete says, yeah, take me with you.
Just go to sleep, Pete.
Yeah.
And Pete goes to sleep.
Yeah. So cut to this. It's Christmas morning. He's driving the Mercedes with the money, and he runs into Sydney and the RV, and he's having some trouble. They're out of gas.
My fucking shitbag mother declined to tell me that she didn't gas up the RV because he's taking his kids to whatever Six Flags is in the middle of the country on Christmas Day. They're all bundled up.
Yeah.
It could not look colder.
Charlie helps him siphon some gas out of the Mercedes and gets him going. But before he drives away, on the back of the RV, he takes out a red Sharpie and writes that quote. And like Ryan's saying,
it's revealed that he's the one that's been writing
it. And I think it was supposed to be more of like a...
It doesn't connect.
It doesn't connect that well. But he puts the RV in reverse, smacks him in the face. He falls over. The RV drives off.
First time I saw this, I was like, did he just die?
I thought he died. And in the alternate endings, I'm pretty sure he dies.
No, I think one, he walks off into the field.
He ends up walking off in both of them, but he cross-dissolves into nothing.
Okay.
And one of them in particular ends with him and Vic sitting at the bar. It's a flashback where they hatch the
plan.
I mean, the dialogue right before they hatch it is happening, where he just ends the conversation saying something like, well, you know what we could do. But he gets back in the car. In the other endings, he has blood all over his face. He's spitting up blood. That's not in the ending. It's in the movie. He gets back in the car and lets out a sigh, and all of a sudden, Pete sits up in the back seat.
Yeah, it catches you off guard.
Yeah, it's the way he looks. He's just so disoriented, and he's just like, "Oh, good morning." He's like, "Oh, Merry Christmas, buddy." And he asks, "Where are we?" He says, "We're in heaven." And
it's just funny to me because like before that, when he's like just like this, like bundled up, looking out in the field,
yeah,
all I could think was, I'm like, that's hell.
Yeah.
When I die and go to hell, that's what I'm going to say.
All alone and just...
And the fact that like he said like this is heaven, it like really was like odd to me because I literally was thinking this is hell.
Yeah.
Because this is heaven.
Yeah.
They serve pancakes in heaven.
They got pancakes, and they drive off.
And it's nice because they're the only two friends in the film, and
they
shouldn't be.
And that's what I loved about it. Because,
they're the only ones with actual friendship.
And if anything, they commiserate over the fact they're both married to the same woman and have to deal with her family, and it's just...
But you can make the case that having someone to care about, someone that cares about you, saves you.
Yeah.
Because everyone else in the movie has no one that cares for them.
Right.
They don't care for anyone
it's
with
really
the exception of themselves, and they meet their demise.
Yeah.
Those two had each other's back. And they win.
Yeah, and that's when I thought of you, too, because I know we've talked about that, movies where they get away with it, the right people get away with it. And like you said, their friendship is one of the only pure elements of the movie, and it shouldn't be.
I've talked about this before. Very ancient male friendship. Very important.
It transcends the ages. It
certainly does.
89 minutes, tight. It flies by. It's so... When I put it in, I didn't watch till last night. And again, I'm not unlike you. I haven't seen this movie in quite a long time, and I remembered little about it except there was ice and a trunk and Billy Bob Thornton and John Cusack. Yeah. I forgot about Oliver Platt. I forgot about Mike Starr. I forgot about Randy Quaid. So there were so many rewarding surprises in this movie for me, and the most of which was probably it came from a director that I've always respected, that really championed a lot of great comedy, but then did something like this.
I think he pushed himself on this one,
and
it shows.
And he even said that he wanted to direct this movie because he didn't have to do... The script was so perfect that he was just like, I can just shoot it. And, I'm sure he interjected his things, but when you have a script like that you're just like, I want to do this because it's so perfect.
Yeah,
and
it's exciting.
And you can tell he was excited about it. And
it's a really good film. It's super underappreciated.
I wish the man didn't die to begin with, but I wish he had gone out on a higher note, because he did a few episodes of The Office.
Yeah, I remember that.
But
they were fine.
He ends with Year One, which is such a disappointment. It's so not who he was. And again, I think everyone involved...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it became a thing where the crew and cast knew it wasn't working. No one had the heart to tell him. He didn't have the heart to tell them it wasn't working, and it just became a mess. So yeah, this for me is it's kind of heartbreaking, because it shows that he could have done more of these dark, dark crime movies. And
as you get older,
yeah,
he would have really... I think he would have had like more to impart even.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, he's got a ton of interviews out there. There's an 1.5-hour seminar someone filmed of him on YouTube just talking about comedy movies that inspired him. It's phenomenal. He's such a sweet guy.
Check that out myself,
actually. Yeah, it's really great. But yeah, this is, for me, a pleasant surprise. And I really hope people check this out like they did for The Wrong Guy. I think
recommend from me.
It's a great film. And if you're looking for just something to get rid of that every year those same Christmas movies that get played to death. Like if you're looking to mix it up a little bit, this is perfect.
I don't like where are we at 2005. We're almost almost close to 15 years on this movie. I'm surprised it hasn't got more of a following behind it.
I agree. Yeah,
because this is a great film.
This is a movie that does that cynicism very well.
Correct.
And also kind of packages it up with a nice sort of optimistic ending. There is redeeming, qualities in these characters.
Well, they're kind of free too, because anyone that would come after them is probably dead.
Yeah.
You might think there's someone that might avenge Bill Gerard. But
they might think they're dead as well. They might not even know.
Very true.
So yeah, great film. We're going to keep the mics rolling though and talk a little bit more about some Harold Ramis of his other movies, including Club Paradise. I have some thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife, which, spoiler alert, he's in.
We got to put a stop to this.
I'm going to both defend and not defend it. So
okay, well, this is going to be very interesting.
Stay tuned for that. For those of you, thank you so much for your continued support and listens on this podcast. We had, I think, a really great year. We did a lot of really interesting movies, and this was a great one to cap it off. So we're going to get this out most likely before the holiday. But yeah, if you're looking for a little movie to spice up your holiday, check out The Ice Harvest. And please keep sending your suggestions in. almostcultclassics@gmail.com. We're on Twitter @Joe Ramone, @Ryan Lancello. We'd love to hear from you. So for those of you who support us on Patreon, we will see you for that conversation. And for those of you that don't, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.